Hey everyone, ever wondered what the story is behind the Moris, the finisher moves of Dead by Daylight's killers? For many there is a story and meaning behind what the character is doing, so let's get into it. Trapper's is simple, but one feature that is worth noting as meaningful is how he places his foot onto the survivor. The Macmillans ruled over their estate with an iron fist, and so this is likely a small nod to that oppression of the workers, putting a foot down onto the survivors, who they view as lesser. Wraith is a tough one to find a connection for, but I thought possibly the leg pull he does could be a reference to his own life, his own failure to escape the darkness of the entity, which continually pulled him back, ultimately to death, a representation of the inescapability of death. Wraith now does the same to the survivors. Billy's is quite tough to find meaning for, and I think in this case it's basically just to reference and show off his brutality. He also does a similar foot down to Trapper, so it could also sort of reference how he's now in the power role. Nurse's Mori is likely to show off her humanity that lies within. She's a monster, but she still shows she cares with this careful caress at the end of her Mori. She closes the survivor's eyes in quite a caring way. As we can see in her add-ons too, she likely chooses this method because she also steals the final breath of those she finishes, with these empowering her. It could also be her applying the same damage that she has received onto the survivors, with her throat also sounding quite damaged and raspy. Huntress's is similar to Billy's, I think, just relaying her as efficient, going for a deadly blow and showing off her power. As Thanos said, "You should have gone for the head," and Huntress really seems to live by this. It's showing off she's efficient and practical when it comes to this kind of thing. It's also a common move in her tome lore. Maya's Mori exemplifies his strength, but also makes reference to some other finishing moves he makes in Halloween. On this character in particular, he does a similar thing of holding them up with his knife going in. It's likely both a homage, but also a display of strength. Hag's Mori has great meaning as it shows her now as the monster. In her story she gets captured by a village of people who consume people, and now in the realm she herself has become just like them, after escaping and wiping them out. I think this Mori also wants to exemplify how little of Lisa remains, and how she's now quite animalistic with the way she pounces onto the survivors. Doctor's Mori is a simple reference to his days of studying electroshock therapy and experimenting on people. He bundles up a huge shock then just fries the survivor. It shows off his twisted methods and his past. Bubba's Mori doesn't seem to reference any particular scene from Texas Chainsaw, but maybe sort of a combination of a few different moments. It's meant to also show off Bubba's brutality though, and his method of finishing survivors being similar to how cattle are sometimes slaughtered, with him stunning them first. Freddy's Mori references a specific moment in the 2010 film, where he does a similar move of appearing behind someone and plunging his claws through their back. This Mori emphasizes his abilities to move around freely in the dream world, appearing behind you and surprising you, and just a show of power basically. Pig's Mori references how Jigsaw attacked Tap, going for his throat and causing the scar we see on him now today. By repeating it, Pig is likely not only trying to target Tap with this specifically to make him relive the trauma, but it also shows that she's still loyal to Jigsaw and a disciple, I think. Clown's Mori makes reference to his lore and the way he collects fingers within it as trophies. He does this specifically because of his father, and the way his point would haunt him and make him feel terrible, so now he claims them for his own. The initial stomp is also likely just showing off his brutal and crude methods. He's not some mastermind, he's sloppy and brutal. There's no meaning when it comes to why he chooses a different finger for female and male survivors. That's just because Ash has a metal hand, so all male survivors get their finger taken from the opposite hand. Spirit's Mori references her own death, which is an incredibly important part of her lore, as it's the moment she gave herself over to the entity. The way her death is described, her father slashes her at the same points she does when performing her Mori. It feeds into the White Eyes theory that she's seeing the survivors differently, maybe even as her father, which is why she wants to return the punishment almost. Legion's Mori doesn't have too much meaning, I think. It's just meant to represent that they're more grounded and physically human than most characters, one of many in a crowd who turned bad. It's one of few moments in game we actually get to see someone fight back directly against the killers as well. In fact, there's a few moments in the Moris all round where survivors do something out of the ordinary. It's almost like the entity magic is lifted briefly, and for a period of time everything becomes grounded and the survivors can finally push back a little. Plague's Mori is likely a reference to the many sacrifices she did, but also her ritualistic outlook on the realm. She likely sees it as a holy place almost, her god's realm. Therefore when she gets the opportunity to finish a survivor by hand, she does a small prayer or chant before she does, likely a thank you of sorts, that she poses as an offering to the entity. Ghostface's Mori references the fact that he's a journalist, and would use his role as one to promote his own crimes and legend of the Ghostface. His habit here, therefore, seems to be that he'll snap a picture for the story. It's also just to show off his carelessness and quite silly nature when it comes to this stuff. He's unhinged, and he finds it funny. Demogorgon's Mori could be a reference to a few finishing moves Demogorgons do in the show. The closest is a Season 4 moment though, but that released way after Demo came to DVD, so it wouldn't make much sense. I think it's just showing off the creature's true power and strength. Oni's Mori references a specific moment in his lore where he tears out the tongue of a lord who desecrated his name in Japan by calling him Oni Yamaoka, an insult to him, his family, and their legacy. He was called a demon basically, which was a dishonorable title for Kazan and his ego. In the realm, I imagine he repeats it because he's now permanently an Oni, and as to stop the survivors from calling him that, he takes their tongues too. Deathslinger's Mori appears to be more a correction of sorts on his inciting act that landed him in prison. After his boss, Henry Bayshaw, sold on his inventions elsewhere, Caleb became angry and shot his rail spike gun through his abdomen. I think why he does it like this is, in the Mori, is basically him replaying that moment, and wishing, a bit like Thanos again, weird he's come up twice, that he'd gone for the head. Also with the White Eyes theory, he could be seeing the survivors too as the people who wronged him, so him performing this could very well be on Bayshaw, from Caleb's perspective. Pyramid Head's Moris are both at a base level meant to show him off as an executioner, as the name suggests. There are parts of each that sort of seem similar to moments in the films, and maybe the games too, but nothing direct I think. Again, I think it's more to do with the power dynamic, and with his primary Mori it's showing off how he can't be escaped, with the survivors bundled in the twisted metal. The inescapability of the executioner. Blight's Mori is a little confusing, and I think it's meant to show the serum's true potency, how Blight relentlessly pumps it into himself, but one vial on a regular survivor and it bubbles up and kills them. It's also just likely him experimenting a bit, given the chance for freedom in the trials. Okay, I'll do an experiment quickly then and see how they react to my serum. Twins Mori seems to just be to show off their teamwork together. It's also the only time in Trial we get to see them both move at the same time, which is interesting. It could also be a reference to the lore too, where Victor seems to be the much more aggressive one of the two, and so Charlotte allows him to jump down and attack here. Trickster's Mori is all just a big performance really. He shows off his moves with his knife going into the air, and he tosses a signed photo down onto the survivor. A reference in general I suppose to how he treats his fans. He also says thank you for watching his performance. It's all an act and game to him. Nemesis's Mori may be another general reference to a few moves from the games, and I think this is the most likely moment it's referencing. It's simply just an efficient finisher he does. I think it's also a move he does in the original Resident Evil 3 too. He also says stars when he Moris a STARS member, and this is because he was hunting stars before the realm, with his ultimate goal of killing them all. He seems to still have this in the back of his mind. Pinhead's Mori appears to be a reference to the Cenobites killing Frank Cotton, with a similar move done of the chains coming in and pulling away, with the pillars being visible in the background too I believe, and also appearing in some other films. I can't show the scene unfortunately, it's a bit too brutal. Frank was the target of the Cenobites for the film after he escaped hell, so when they take him, they do it quite brutally. In DBD they take the survivors to hell seemingly simply by teleporting them away. Artist Mori is quite odd with her implanting her crow into the survivor, with it bursting out. Maybe I'm off base here, but I think maybe this is representing the entity's presence within her. The crow of course is a symbol of the entity, and here it's used specifically for this moment of violence, something Kamina would not willingly do without influence I think. I think she's quite overtaken by the entity, and its corruption. Sadako's Moris are both references to the film and the way she finishes people. She uses her abilities to kill them quickly. It's quite brutal but shows off her vengeance and anger. Dredge's Mori simply shows off its true nature, how it would deal with people in the real world by consuming them. It does this for the Garden of Joy members. It's unclear what happens to the survivors afterwards, but I think that's the point. There's likely a whole realm within Dredge, similar to the entities, and so the horrors the survivors who enter may experience is quite terrifying to think about. Wesker's Mori is simply to show off his power and how he feels superior to the survivors. This is another where they fight back and he just laughs it off, showing his feelings of superiority and power with Ouroboros. He also says something a little different for Chris, as it's defeats his nemesis. Knight's Mori is also not too deep, it's just a show of how efficient and deadly Knight and his guards are, each contributing to the final blow. Skull Merchant's Mori is another one that just shows off her character a bit. There's not too much to it, it just shows off her using her drone, tracing her hands down the survivor, and then ending them. It has a bit of finesse, I suppose, and she toys with them a bit, showing off some personality that's also present in her lore. Singularity's Mori is his process seemingly for acquiring the survivor's genes. He does so by injecting them with something and stealing some of their biological material. He seems to have done this to the Devaka crew too, with their remains present on the map. It may also just be an injection of something lethal and not related to that at all. Xenomorph's Mori references a particular scene from the Alien films and quite an iconic shot. The smaller mouth comes out from the larger one, piercing through the survivor. Chucky has a very interesting Mori as it references a bunch of different kills from the first film. The initial hammer is from a scene where he throws a hammer at Andy's babysitter. He then later attacks a detective, I think it is, with a baseball bat. I haven't watched it in a while. And finally the ruler or yardstick is used on a teacher in Andy's class in the second film. So it's all referencing different kills he's done in the past. Unknown's Mori I think is simply meant to freak us out a bit. We're meant to go, whoa, what was that? There's tentacles in there? It's surprising and very gross and reveals what is likely Unknown's true form. It reiterates once again that this creature is unknown to us. Vecna's Mori I believe is simply to show off his power. If left unrestricted, he's able to simply lift the survivors and make them crumble in an instant. The same goes for secondary ones too. I believe both are just a show of power. Dracula's is a similar thing, it just shows him off as very powerful and to have a dislike for humans aside drinking their blood, which he does so with a wine glass. He's efficient and brutal and he sees humans as just something to be consumed. I do believe it also references a Castlevania scene. Houndmaster's finally is a reference to how she wanted to kill her enemy Molak by stamping on his head with her heel. She planned to do this after feeding Molak his own son, but he gets taken into a fog, following snug into it after him, as he seems to have picked up his scent. Now in the realm, she does this action onto others, and even has some really cruel voice lines she says to multiple survivors. Each are targeted and quite cruel and seem to be a final taunt. There's also a small suggestion that she may know Clown or even be friends with him, with a line mentioning taking fingers for a pal, which is bizarre, but hey. We also have Moris that come with cosmetics, but many of these honestly are not especially interesting to talk about. They're just more on the brutal side and don't feel like they reference much, so I'll just talk about the ones I have something to say for, which I think is just one actually. Werelk is interesting as it appears the Werelk kills the survivor in the same way Anna's mother was killed by the elk in her lore. It's possible that Anna in her Werelk form wishes to reenact this moment almost, dishing out the pain she received, causing the survivors to die by the same means that her mother did. Let me know as well anything I missed or any themes or connections you think are important in these Moris. Thanks for watching and goodbye.